out this for the first time, and I need to make sure this is all set up right. I think it's all set up right. Plug this the other way. All right. Hi, on YouTube, if you can hear me, just give me a thumbs up. I would appreciate that. I'm trying this for the first time on here. I see you, Kwabinam. I'm sorry if I mess up your name. All right. Um, Good day. Good day. How are you doing? Can you hear me? If you can hear me, just say yes in the chat. I would appreciate that. Yeah. So I'm actually doing this event on. Um, yes. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, and thanks for joining as well. So I'm doing this event on what is it called? Discord. So if you're not part of that, you can join. But of course, I'm going to be on here as well, and I'll try to answer some questions along the way. So feel free to put in your questions in there. I'll try to catch it here and there. But what I'm about to talk about is something quite exciting. I think, in my opinion, I'm kind of excited about it because I've received, over the years, I've gotten a lot of questions from people. I've helped a lot of people in different forms, different ways when it comes to this journey of achieving your goals of becoming a pilot. So this is a very interesting topic for me, and I intentionally chose this, topic of becoming a pilot against all odds, because I think it is something for people who may have a different mindset and think, they are either disadvantaged or they are in a situation where they cannot maybe afford training and things like that. And I'm going to cover a lot of things in this video. I hope that it benefits you on this live. By the way, I said a video, but I guess it's a video, but on this live. And I hope that you benefit from it. Hear you clearly. Thank you. Thanks for joining. Mohammed, thanks for joining. Dion, thanks for joining as well. Captain AA820, thanks for joining. Hi. Atif Jalil, thanks for joining as well. I see Riyadh here, cadet program. Um, Honestly, I haven't looked at that recently, so I cannot say much about. I would need to look at that again to say much about it. But I'm going to keep this focused on just the topic of today. All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. For me, it is afternoon. My time right now is 12:57 p.m. So it's kind of early afternoon for me. So, like I said, I'm going to be joining this other Discord event on here and where the event will start. So please feel free to stick around. Should last. This whole thing should last for maybe, I would say, roughly 30 minutes or so. Me talking, sharing experiences. So I hope that it inspires you. I hope that it encourages you wherever you are. I hope that you can see that you would see, based on what I would share, that no matter where you are, no matter your background, you can achieve this, because I'm going to share real life stories, real life experiences of people, not people sharing their stories online. These are people that I have met, that I have interacted with, and I hope that you will find it informative. All right. So just bear with me. I have, like I said, a few, maybe 2 more minutes, and I'll get this started. But in the meantime, feel free to share where you are from in the chat on YouTube right now. Feel free to share where you're from, country, region. That works as well. It's good to just see where everybody's from, because I know I have a very wide range of people in the community. So I would like to know from the UK, Ghana. I see that. Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Um, Algeria, UK again. That's good. Where else? I see. So two people from UK so far, two people from the African region so far. That's good. Good to have you all. Honestly, Niger, I see that. Awesome, man. Dion, thanks for joining. I appreciate all of you on here, honestly. And I hope that, I hope by the end of this, you guys would hopefully be inspired. Honestly, that is really the key of this. And I plan to share, like I said, stories of people and how they did it. All right. So I'm going to be talking about all of this. So let's get this started. I hope you guys can still hear me very well on both ends. All right, because I have my computer, I have my phone. So I hope you guys can hear me. All right, let's see. For the chat here, I have to enable something. Let's see, let's get that started. All right, so for those of you on Discord, can you guys hear me very well? Just to make sure my audio is good on this as well. If you can just type a yes in the chat. If you want to speak, remember to raise your hand. I'll give you the ability to speak and I'll be able to, and you can speak, all right? Let's see, chat. What chat are they using? I know people are joining on Discord. If you can hear me on there, please just type in the questions for voice chat. Just type yes, because that's what I'm monitoring right now. If you're on Discord, if you can hear me, just type yes in the chat section. That way I can know that you can hear me. I'm not seeing anybody type anything, so I'm kind of worried that if you're on Discord, if you can hear me, go to the voice for, let's see, questions for voice chat. Yes, you can hear you, so thanks. Awesome. The ANS feature isn't working. Great. Okay, so I see that you can hear me and I can see that you are saying the ANS feature isn't working. That is interesting. I don't know why it's not working, but if you want to speak, just type in the chat section that you want to speak, and then I'll be able to give you the ability to speak, okay? I'm going to answer some questions as we go along. I'm going to answer them. So just for all of us in this session where I have my YouTube on as well. So if you want to see a video, you can go to the YouTube and see me. If you want to just listen to the voice over the Discord, you can actually just listen to the voice. But the benefit of Discord, all right, for those of you on YouTube, the benefit of Discord is that you can speak and we can both interact. So instead of typing, you can come on here and also get to speak if you want to. All right, so please bear with me as I juggle all of this. All right, so let's get it started. Like I said, feel free to leave your questions in the question section, both on YouTube and on Discord. My goal is to try to answer every question on here and share what I need to share with you. All right. Let's see. I'm trying to get my notes on here. All right. So let's start with something. One of the biggest challenges that people have when it comes to becoming a pilot. All right. Honestly, even from the time I started my journey, which somebody actually asked that, how did I begin my journey? I see Pilot AA. I see you on here. I see you asked how did I begin my journey in aviation as a pilot. Now, to let you all know, I started my training in 2010. All right, and I grew up in Nigeria. Okay, I had developed interest in aviation since I was 5 years old. But of course, as we all know, as time went on, as I grew older, we didn't have the funds, we didn't have the ability to pursue this, right? Because like every other person that I know on earth, unless you have money sitting in a bank account, unless your parents are wealthy, unless you're a politician, unless we know all this, unique situations in which people can easily afford 80, $90,000 for flight training. Unless you're that kind of person, then sure, maybe this might be different for you. But for most people, you end up experiencing this lack of fund, or not the inability to raise funds. You may not have the ability to start training. So that was the situation I was in. And when I started, before I started training at all, I I started university, and I could not, for the life of me, just try to focus on school because I wanted to just become a pilot. That was the only dream I had, you know. And I had to choose a course in uni to start, just, knowing that I couldn't afford flight training. I had to choose a course to start with. And the program I did in university was this computer science and all. But during that whole phase of starting university, I realized that I could not start flight training just because of the cost of it. It was so expensive. And I remember back in Nigeria, back then, it was going to cost about 7.5 million naira to start my training. But my parents couldn't afford it, right? So I ended up just focusing on my university because that was the only option I had. Let me just reply. Charlie, yes, I have that set up already so that people can speak. Thank you so much. I just need to assign the role when I'm ready. But thank you for pointing that out. So one thing I did was, just to focus on what I had, and that was to finish my degree program at the university. Now, fast forward 2010, I finished university, NYSC, for those of you that might be familiar with that, from Nigeria anyway. I moved on to start my NYSC program. And during that period, it's a program we do in Nigeria just for people who, after finishing university. After finishing that program, I enrolled in flight school. Now, even at the time, I didn't have the funds as well. But one thing I had was my family's support, right? My parents, my sisters, everybody was on board. Let's put it that way. And I looked for schools all around the world, in EU, South Africa, the US. And one of the schools that responded that I kind of liked was in the US, in Florida. Hence the reason I ended up in Florida to start flight training in 2010. Now, if you guys would all remember, girls and guys, all right? If you all remember, if you guys are old enough to know this, 2008 was what? The financial crisis, right? So the economy wasn't good. Aviation was not really in a good spot to even hire people, right? And for that reason, it was almost discouraged by most people, all right, at the time, that pursuing aviation wasn't a thing, because guess what? The whole economy was in shambles, right? And flight training is so expensive. So what's the guarantee that when you finish, you get a job, or when you finish, an airline will take you, or not even finish? Would I even have the funds to even finish it, right? So I didn't have the funds. All I had was enough to even start. And I remember, and how did I get the funds? This was all by my parents, by the way. So thanks to them, I honestly wouldn't take that for granted, but that was how I got started. And why is this story important? Why is this story important for everybody, both on YouTube and Discord? Why is this story important? The reason why this story is important is because it lets you see that nobody has, well, most people that I'm going to be sharing their stories on here in the next few minutes, most people do not have $80,000 sitting around. Most people do not have $100,000 sitting around. And what that tells you is that your intent, your motivation, your ability to keep at it, even when this road gets rough, when you don't have enough money, when you have to find creative ways to raise funds, that is what will get you through. It's not because you have $80,000 sitting around. It's not because you have $100,000 sitting around. Because during my time at training, while I was in flight school, there were people who had more than enough to finish their training, but could not finish training to save their life, if that makes sense. Right? For the heck of it, they could not finish training. For some reason, maybe it was lack of motivation, maybe lack of focus, right? But money wasn't a problem. And that is why I'm trying to really bring it to your mind and to bring to the forefront of all of this, that even though money is important, I won't say it's not important. What is more important is your ability to find creative ways, stay dedicated through this, because yes, generally speaking, training should take 18 months. Let's say 2 years. But the reality is that for most people, it takes longer than that. And that is all because what? Lack of funds, right? Because they have to find creative ways to get through training. So from people in Africa to people in Asia, UK, America, wherever you may be that you're watching this, listening to this, one thing I'll say is that don't let the money story be the reason why you quit or you don't pursue this. Don't let the money story be the reason why you quit or you don't pursue this. Remember, any form of education that has good rewards at the end of it will cost you money. If you want to become a doctor, it's expensive. If you do IT, right, it's going to cost you some money to get your degree. And if you're going to get any certifications, it costs you a lot of money. The better the certification, the more money it's going to cost you. So the point here is anything good will cost you some money. All right? Anything good will cost you some money. The unique thing about flight training is that you have a pool of people, a small pool of people who are aware of ways in which you can get your training done. And for that reason, it feels almost unachievable because the pool of people who are able to do it seems small. But because the pool is small doesn't mean that you have people who started from zero, didn't have any, financial backing, are not part of those people in that pool. And that's because the aviation community is very small. That is the reason why it feels like it can be difficult to get in. So I don't want you to have that mindset that it's difficult to get in. I don't want you to have the mindset that is expensive. Yes, it is expensive, but that is not the only thing, because anything is expensive. Becoming a doctor is expensive. Becoming a lawyer is expensive. Doing IT and getting good certifications is expensive. It all comes down to your interest. So just to make sure I'm not off track with my notes, I'm going to look at my notes real quick here, make sure I have some things that I want to talk about because I've really spent time to put this together. All right, so now one of the things I would also bring to you is going back to my story, right? I started in 2010. A lot of people were discouraging me and others who were trying to pursue this about the environment, the aviation industry and all. And I'm sure if I'm going to ask a lot of you guys out here, right, that is it easier to become a pilot now than 2010 or 2000? Is it easier or is it harder? I don't know. Can you guys put in the chat, all right? Is it easier to become a pilot now in 2026 or harder to become a pilot in 2026? I want to see what people think. Yes or no's. I want to see it in the chat. Is it harder? Is it easier? If you don't mind, put in the chat. Let's see what people say. Somebody says on here on Discord, it's easier to become a pilot now. Somebody says, yes, it is easier. So I think it's easier. That's what I see on here on YouTube as well. Okay. So I'm seeing a lot of agreements between what you guys are saying. Somebody said here, it's not harder, nor easier. It's stayed the same, but easier with more information. Great. I like that. I think it's the same, depends on yourself. That's what Aaron says on here. Somebody mentioned, I guess, harder. Okay. We'll get to that. All right. I feel like now there are less ways to be sponsored. Somebody's mentioning that on YouTube. Easier, but recruitment harder. Okay. All right. I see. I think it's the same. Somebody says on here. Cadet programs. Okay. We're going to touch on all of this. I'm so happy you all are engaged. Okay. I'm so happy you all are engaged. So I can tell that majority are saying it's a bit easier. Okay. Somebody said it's easier. Abdirahim, he says it's easier, but the process is hard. Okay. Chibs season. I don't know how to say that. Easier. However, a lot more people want to become a pilot, so there's more competition. Great. So we're going to touch on all these aspects in a few minutes. Okay. So I'm not going to answer that question just yet because I'm going to ask you at the end of it all, because somebody actually already said something that I think is important. And I'm just going to read it just so everybody's on board. All right. It says, it's Light. Light says, it's not harder nor easier. It stayed the same, but easier with the more information we have at hand. And that information is key. And that's something I want you guys to take away from this. All right. Because that is why, again, my channel exists. It's not because I have any special powers or anything that I do, other than the fact that information can become powerful if used correctly. And I hope that you guys will be able to use the information that I will share with you in different ways. Okay? So let me read this to you. Let's see. Kind of skipping some things here. So I talked about the downturn. Now, if you think about it being easier or harder, let me kind of give you some frame of mind back in 2000. 2000 and 2001 was the 9/11 attacks, right? The most airlines, including the economy, went down, right? And a lot of airlines laid off pilots. Between 2000 and 2010, we also had the financial crisis of 2008, which was a rolling kind of, the airlines were coming out of 2001 events around 2006, 2007. Think the bubble was was about to burst at the time. And guess what happened in 2008, the financial crisis, and then the airlines went down again because the economy collapsed everywhere. From 2010 to about 2012, that was when things started to normalize again and airlines started hiring. And why am I saying all of this? The reason I'm saying all of this is because the trend that happened between those years, that decade between 2000 and 2010, that trend that happened there really set up something that happened between 2011 and 2020, before COVID, of course. And that trend was, pilots weren't paid well. A lot of people had to drop out of flight training, all right, because there were no jobs anywhere. A lot of airlines that followed were literally taking back people they followed. They were not really hiring a lot of fresh pilots from flight schools. So my time when I started wasn't really the best time to start. But the point now that I'm trying to make to you is that, in my opinion, right, now it's definitely easier to become a pilot, right? The finance, the money aspect of it has always been an issue. If you go back 20 years, let's say we go back to 2006, or we go back to 1990, anyone you speak to that didn't have funds of cash just sitting around will tell you that they had to find creative ways to fund their training. So the issue of money has always been the problem. And as I've mentioned in the past, you might be unique. You might be in the UK, you might be in the US, you might be in Nigeria, you might be in Ghana, you might be in anywhere, right? Most people have this money problem, and this is not unique to you. What is unique is your situation, where you're located, your background in terms of opportunities around you. That is unique to you. But the money issue is not unique, and that's something I want you guys and girls to take away, that if money is the problem, then I think your problem can be resolved using creative ways to find finance, or to finance your training, or to fund your training. And like I said, I'm going to be mentioning some of this, all right? Now, one thing I would say, all right, and I'm going to highlight some of the stories of some people right now. In 2010, when I started, a friend of mine, his name is Uche, okay, from Nigeria as well. We both started training together. He started training the same day I started training, right? And to fast forward, to not bore you with the details of the story, there were times I ran out of money during training, just so you guys know, right? There were times I didn't have money and I had to be grounded. And grounded means that you couldn't fly because you don't have money. And mind you, I was an international student as well, okay? So there were times I didn't have money. But then let me highlight the story of Uche, because when I talk about myself, sometimes it feels like, I'm trying to talk about myself. Let me talk about other people's stories, all right? So he was grounded. There was a time he literally had to leave the United States to go back to Nigeria to find funds. He went to a church, spoke to a church, they gave him some money, went to his friend, went to family members, and long story short, he came back to the States, still didn't have enough funds to finish training, ended up working different type of jobs. And mind you, this was a friend, my roommate, we started training together. By the time he came back to the States, this was 4 years later, or maybe 3 years later, give or take. I was already done with training. I was already instructing, when he came back. So 2 years or so went by, or maybe a year and a half went by. He wasn't training, but still came back to get a job. When I say job, hard jobs to raise funds to fund his training. He ended up finishing training after I had already become, I personally, remember we started together, okay? Just keep that in mind. We started together, but I had already become an instructor. He was still trying to find funds to finish training. Eventually got his training done, became an instructor. Long story short, he flies for Delta now. He flies for Delta Airlines now. All right, that is one story. Let me share another story with you. Gamar, he's from Ethiopia. All right, he was a student when I was a flight instructor. He shared with me the story of how he raised his funds. He went to college, got his university degree, raised funds through the IT job he had. So he saved up money, and after he saved up money, he came to the States to get his training done. Right now, he flies for a private company. I think, I can't remember the company now, but he flies in Ethiopia right now. All right. Shankar from India. All right. He actually started before me, but he became a chief pilot at the flight school. But how did he do all of that? This guy actually sold land in India. All right. Just so you guys are getting ideas. I hope this is benefiting a lot of people. All right. Zishan also, I think he's from India. He was well ahead of me actually. But this guy worked part-time, right? Took some loans, worked part-time, and he funded his training. There were times he ran out of money, kept coming back, kept doing it, kept going. Okay, I hope I'm still talking to everybody. I hope you haven't lost anybody here. If I am, please just type it yes in the chat. I would appreciate that. Okay, just type yes in the chat, both on Discord and on YouTube as well. Okay, awesome. All right, then let's talk about the guys in the UK. Honestly, I've met a lot of you guys out there, and I've been to the UK. I've my family members are in the UK, but why am I talking about the guys in the UK? Because I've met a lot of people, I've heard different stories, but I'm just going to mention a few. Matt applied to the Speedbird program the first time in 2023. That was actually how I met him. So did the coaching thing, talked about, interviews, how to get through and all that stuff. Unfortunately, I think he got to the final stage in 2023, didn't get selected. Then 2024, applied to TUI. He got to the final stage, made it to the cutoff point where he was actually selected to be part of because how TUI does it, they pick the first at the time. They had 30 people that they selected, and then they had like a reserve of people in case the 30 people they selected, any of those people didn't get through, maybe due to background checks or medical. They had this reserve of pool of reserve that they kept. He was part of those people. Unfortunately, they didn't call him because I guess those other people made it through, right? But the point here is he met all the requirements. The only thing that was different for him was that he was part of the pool of reserve pilots or cadets that didn't eventually get called. But luckily for him, he applied to the Speedbird program again and got selected. All right. Why am I mentioning this? The point here is he eventually started, he's actually in training now, by the way. He's in, I believe, Spain, right? The school FTE. Katie, I think that's her name. She also applied twice. She did the Speedbird program first time, didn't get through, then did TUI in 2024 and got on with TUI, right? And actually dropped out of the cadet, because she made it to the final for the Speedbird program, but then dropped out of that. Okay, because she already got selected with TUI. So you can see our options. Then I got Thomas. I don't think he's online because it's actually in the Discord group. Thomas was part of the Speedbird program as well in 2023, but got on with Luxair in 2023 or 2024 because he's done with training now. So 2024, no. So yeah, he started in 2024 and he's done with training with Luxair. He's actually about to do his type rating. So why am I sharing these stories of people? The reason why I'm sharing all of this is for you guys to see, guys and girls, to see that the opportunities are out there. People may have different things available to them. Some may have cadet programs available to them. Some may have to find creative ways to fund training. Some may have to have, family members sponsor them through training. But the point here is none of all of this, none of all these processes, none of all these avenues will be easy. None of them is easy. Why? Because they all require you to be very motivated, very focused, and be ready to do what it takes. That is the reality of it. Even if you have the funds for training, it doesn't mean training will be easy. Okay? So do not think that there is this magic thing out there. There is no magic thing out there, and looking for funds or finding funds for training shouldn't be just the main thing that we focus on, even though that is always the focus of most people, right? How do I fund training? How do I fund training? But like I said, all these people didn't really have the funds, including myself. Didn't have the funds when I started. It all took the grit and just the ability to stay focused and keep trying again. Now, let's see. And I asked a question in here that I put down. What do you think these people have in common? All these people that I've mentioned, what they have in common, which I'm going to answer for all of you, right? One is motivation, the ability to not give up, and of course, the tenacity to achieve their dream and to stay committed to it. Because that is something that I believe they all had in common, including myself. Because, hey, I know sometimes, we get through our phases, we go through phases in life, challenges will come, difficulties will come. But if you have to achieve something, and if you set your mind to it, you will find creative ways to achieve it. No matter where you are, no matter your background, no matter your circumstance, okay? So if you have all these traits, let's believe you're very motivated, you want to be a pilot and all that. One thing that you need to change, that I want you to take away, or at least change the mindset that you have, is that instead of saying, I can't become a pilot because it's expensive, I would say you change that to, how do I become a pilot even though it's expensive? All right? We know it's expensive already, but anything can be expensive. Becoming a doctor, becoming a lawyer, going to school is expensive. Nothing is cheap. All right? Now, here are some things you can start doing today. All right? And I'm going to list them not in any order, but I think it works in this order as well. The first thing I'll recommend that anyone does, okay, before you even commit to anything, if you haven't taken a discovery flight, if you haven't had the first flight yet in an airplane, I would recommend you do that. Because when you commit on this journey, you don't want to spend so much money only for you to realize that this is not for you. Okay? So one thing I'll say is take a discovery flight if you can. And I would encourage that you do, because that is something that you will need to at least be sure that this is what you want to pursue. The next thing is look for ways to volunteer or work as much as you can in the aviation environment. So for example, if you are young and you can work on an airport as, I don't know, hangar person, somebody that takes care of the airplanes in an hangar. Some people work as a refueling guys on the airport. Whatever the opportunities are in your area, I would say you look into it. That way you can connect with people in the aviation industry. You can connect with pilots, you can connect with others that are trying to achieve, or maybe that have achieved this, and you can hear from them. But the other important thing that I believe this can open up for you is, especially for those in the Western region, I would say that a lot of times you may meet people who have airplanes that can actually let you rent their airplane for training. They may have an instructor rating already. These are the unique ways, just so you know, these are unique ways people are able to train for cheap, okay? So keep that in mind. You might be able to find people that may be able to rent them airplanes to you. Join flying clubs is another one. I've mentioned that. Aviation associations, that is no-brainer. If you can, be part of those organizations, be active, network, because you just never know what information someone will pass on to you that can change the trajectory or direction of your life. All right. Attend aviation events if you can in your area. You don't have to go far and wide. Okay, just find events around you. And I know that for some regions, again, I'm from Nigeria, so I know exactly how it is. You don't have a lot of these things around. But one thing I would say is that it starts by just even networking with the pilot in your region. Starts by networking with somebody in aviation in your region. It might be an aircraft dispatcher, it might be an aircraft mechanic, right? Start with that, because the information they give you will guide you no matter where you are. Now, let's now talk about some of the other things that I think could be more important. Your family members can be part of this journey as well, because maybe it's your parent, maybe your parents, maybe your sisters, your uncle, your aunts, they can be part of this. If they are on board, it makes the process a bit easier because the money they can contribute towards this journey can help you. So keep that in mind. And I'm talking about, these are for people who may not have the ability to get loans, of course, who may not have the ability to raise funds or, have funds sitting around, okay? So this really applies to you. Of course, things like live less than you make, that's important. You can sell assets. Somebody sold the land to start flight training. That's exactly what I shared about the guy from India, right? You can apply to programs you qualify for. If you are somebody in the regions with cadet programs, make sure you take them like a job. That means you're monitoring these programs, you're preparing, you're staying ahead of it, because that's one way to actually do it, all right? But do not take this for granted. Take on part-time jobs. And one other important thing that I would say is that it will take some sacrifices from you because it's your dream. It's what you want to pursue. It will take sacrifices. You would have to make hard decisions, all right, along the way. But it is part of the process. Like I said, nobody goes, majority of the people who start training, unless it's a funded scheme or you have a lot of money sitting around, most people will start training and take 2, 3, 4 years, maybe even 5 years to get it done. And that doesn't make you bad, because at the end of the day, you will end up where you belong. And what does that mean? You will end up where you belong. And if your dedication, your hard work, if you're dedicated and you're hardworking, you will find yourself in a flight deck of an airliner someday. Yes, it may take longer than planned, because yes, it took me longer than planned. Why? Because I just didn't have the funds as well. All right. So like I said, treat cadet programs like a job, not a lottery. All right. Make sure you're on them regularly, checking to see what's available out there. That is important, and that's why I talk about them. Now, in regards to cadet programs, right? Key things that I've mentioned in so many of my videos: pilot competencies, be very happy with those. Aptitude tests, be on top of them. Structured interview answers, all of those things that I talk about. Please watch my videos. You'll find a lot of information on it. And not just my videos. There's so many tons of resources out there. Use them. Now, for those that may not have all these opportunities, like I said, cadet programs, may not have funds, you can join the military as well. You can change locations. Okay, this is something I need to mention. All right. I think a lot of people always ask me like, oh yeah, I don't have cadet programs in my country. Oh, I don't have money. Yes, there's no money, there are no cadet programs. You can change your location, right? But one of the ways you can legally change your location is study, right? You don't have to come and study aviation right on the get-go. You can go and study IT or computer science or something else, another program. Yes, it's going to cost money, because at the end of the day, there's no free money anywhere. Unless you have the funds, unless you cannot change your location, then you also can do something. All right. And I think this is important for everybody to keep in mind. Please, just because you cannot train abroad because you don't have the funds, or you can't go to school abroad, does not mean that you still cannot become a pilot. I want you guys and girls to take that away from here. A lot of times, yes, it's nice to see, all these airlines in the Western world, whether it's British Airways or Delta, or, from different parts of the world, Cathay Pacific, all these great airlines out there. But trust me, even in other countries, there are great airlines, they still get good pay. Yes, it might not be as compared to these other airlines that I've mentioned, but in terms of your standard of living, you would still live really well. And more important, what is more important here is that you get to achieve that dream. You get to achieve that dream and live the life. So don't say that, oh, because there are no cadet programs in your country, does your country have an airline? Do they have planes? If they do, you can be the pilot on that plane and you can fly for that airline. It just will take some creativity to fund your training. So what creativity am I talking about? Go find a flight school in your region. Go to the flight school out there, talk to them. Yes, it might sound boring because it's not the flight school that you really want, or it's not the country that you really want to fly for. But at the end of the day, what do you want? Do you want a dream, or do you want to become a pilot? Do you want the dream of becoming a pilot, or do you want to work in a country because it's what is cool, right? In my opinion, the dream is more important here. And if the dream is to become a pilot, why don't you prioritize that?
Go to the airlines or go to the schools in your region, find ways to get started and start there. Let me tell you something else that is important, especially in the US with the situation and the environment we are in right now. You can even have the funds and you still will not get the visa. Just so you guys and girls know, you can have the funds, show the funds, get the admission into a school, and you still will not be issued a visa to start training. So would you give up on the dream because, oh, I can't train in the US, or I can't train in wherever country you are trying to get into? I'm sure you won't do that. So why don't you go start where you can start? Go to the school around you. Go start from there and work your way through that. Now, when it comes to the money aspect of it, I've mentioned a few things on here, but one important thing that I would say is this last, but it still shows that you are not giving up in the option list of things that I've mentioned, is if you know let's assume that you don't have the ability to fund training right now, you don't have the funds, you don't have the support, nothing works. Why don't you go start your higher education or start a business if that is something that is available to you? I don't know what your situation is, okay? But one thing I'll say is that the more education or more qualification you hold, the more money you can command or at least bring in. And the goal here is if you can bring in more money, you can save that money. And if you can save that money, then you can go start training. It might take some time, it might be delayed, but it's still achievable. So that is something that I want you to all take from here. Now, there will be delays, like I've mentioned. And failures will come along the way, rejection will come along the way. Things like that will come along the way. But as long as you stay dedicated, this is achievable. Now, of course, I still have some, let's see, something I want to mention here. Okay, so if you are all on board and if you guys and girls believe that it's achievable, the question now is, what is stopping you, right? What is preventing you from taking the steps? I know people will still come up with excuses of, maybe their country doesn't have a flight school, things like that. But it is important to realize that we can list excuses from now to tomorrow. And with all the people that I've listed, that I've mentioned on this session that we've just had, or that we are in right now, they all had excuses as well. And if they give in to their excuses, they won't be where they are today. Those that are in training, those that are already at the airlines, including myself, there was tons of excuses I had along the way, and I could have, done something else, gone to my do the IT thing and truly given up on this, right? But the journey was tough, but I stuck with it. So one thing I want to tell you is that the journey will not be easy, right? I'm not going to say that it's going to be easy and smooth, but if you stick with it, you can achieve it. And that is something that I want you to keep in mind. All right. So I'm going to start answering some of the questions now. If you have any questions, and by the way, check out I have some resources, not on under this video on YouTube right now, but maybe on some of my videos on YouTube. There's some resources out there, CV, pilot competencies, interview guides, and things like that. You can find them on there. You can check them out. They are all there to help, okay? I see Light wants to say something. Let me actually do that. Let me assign a role. Let's see. All right, Light, I think you should be able to speak now. If you just unmute. I don't know if you can hear me. I think I already assigned it to you now, so you should be able to do it on stage. I see what you mean. It's not assigned to the channel. It is actually assigned. I'm sorry. Let's see. Voice, that's good. Okay, can you try it now? Is it still suppressed? Let's see. I cannot hear you. I don't know if you can hear me. Like, oh, I see. You didn't have permission to speak. That is weird. I don't know why it's still doing that. Because I've already assigned the role. I've given the permission to the channel itself. Let me try something. Sorry, guys. Can you try now? Well, if that doesn't work, if you don't mind, just type in the question then. Because I would have to figure this out later so that I can take other questions as well. All right, what airline are you for? Are you a pilot for? Yeah, I fly for FedEx right now. Let's see, I'm trying to see some of the questions on YouTube while I still say it's not working. You know what? Charlie? If Charlie is on, because I think he's also good with, let me send him a message real quick. Yeah, I'm trying to get Charlie to see if he could look into it, because I don't know why it's not working. I think I did everything right, but if Charlie's on, he could help with that. I'm not sure if he's still on. All right, let me try to answer some of the questions here. Let's see. All right, I'm trying to scroll up just so that I don't miss. Let's see. Yep. Okay, so from the UK, Ghana, UK. Okay, that's where I am right now. Hey, Light, for some reason, I don't know why it's not working. I'm sorry about that. I'm trying to get somebody to look into it if he can join, if he's available, but I'm not sure if he's available right now. And I don't want to spend so much time trying to do that myself. All right, let's see. What do you think about joining the Air Force to become a pilot? Absolutely. If that is one way that you take it, this is from Chibs season or Chips. I don't know how to say that. I'm sorry. What do you think about India? I want to be a pilot. Well, one thing I know out there is a lot of people wants to become a pilot, and they're all trying to get into these different cadet programs out there. Um, but there are no sponsored programs. So if you have the ability to sponsor yourself, then I would say you look into it. Now, is Singapore Airline Cadet Program still on? It is on, but they don't accept international students at this time. Correct. Somebody actually answered that. I studied computer science as well. Awesome. That's good. Are you working right now? This is from Kwabinampong. Hey Stephen, I've been watching for you for a while. I'm currently in year 11 in the UK. I'm going to apply to the BA, Jet 2 and 2 programs. Do you have any tips on what I can do? Well, some of the tips I've shared, but one thing I'll say is that these programs are very competitive, but they have great programs. This is from YouTube, by the way. By the way, if you have a question, leave it in from Discord group, please. Leave it in the chat section. For some reason, the voice function isn't working right now, which I apologize for. I thought it would work, but it's not working. So please just use the chat function, okay? I really wanted to speak to people and let them speak to me. That was really the intent here, but for some reason, some of the roles were not assigned properly, in my opinion. Maybe I didn't do it well. I'm sorry about that. All right. So yeah, back to Luke. What I'll say is that I have a lot of resources on YouTube on these programs, all right? And one thing I'll say is you have what it takes, and you just need to put in the work, because of the competition that you deal with, because there's a lot of people who are interested in the programs. It takes a while. It takes some hard work on your part, but you can achieve it as long as you put in the work. All right. Lots of materials online, and honestly, some of these programs like BA, for example, have a lot of resources online as well. All right. Same thing with 2A programs as well. Okay. And what do you and do you think the programs will still be running in 2028? In 2028, honestly, I don't know, because there are no guarantees. As you see, like 2E, they canceled 2026. I'm hoping BA will run this year. They haven't said anything yet, but I'm hoping all these programs will run and they won't cancel. But in 2028, I cannot say, because honestly, I don't know. One thing I want you to note is that every airline, they continue to expand. Outside of any financial crisis, outside of any issues, globally, I think these programs will be around for some time. I really think so. So that's what I can say. The next thing here from Aviator Varon, then how will you achieve, sir? I'm thinking of working in IT field to gain money. Absolutely. That is exactly what I've shared. That is exactly what Gamma did, right? The guy from Ethiopia, he saved up some money in IT and then came on to train, right? That is what he did. So whatever your skills are, whatever your interest may lie, wherever your interest may lie, you have options, all right? You just have to find creative ways to do this. And of course, scholarships, unfortunately, for most of the countries that are really when I say really in need, because everybody's in need of some form of scholarship, but developing countries, all right, let me just say that, rarely have scholarships. So I wouldn't say that you spend so much time on scholarships, because really most of the scholarships only focus on people from the region that they're in, just like the cadet programs. So in your situation, if IT is a route that you can take, please take it and start as soon as possible, all right? Man, I swear doing this while working and being broke seems never ending, but I'm pushing hard. Wide warrior, I think that's how you say that. I completely get what you mean, and I empathize, and I know that it's not easy, and I know that it takes a toll, right? But let me tell you something. When it's all done, when you are done with this and you start working, that just becomes part of your story. That becomes part of who you are. And that would actually inspire other people to go the mile. Because trust me, a lot of people have done exactly what you're saying. You're working, they take training, they do training, they take their flight training during the weekends, and they do their 9 to 5 from Monday to Friday. And from 5 to 10 p.m., they're studying so that when they show up to training, they can, make progress. So yes, it is hard, it is not easy. And I want you to know that. And I'm not trying to tell you that it's easy. No, it's not. Okay. But as long as you keep going and as long as you put your head down, you will get through it. And once you're done, the jobs are out there. You don't have to stay in your country. And this is something I didn't mention before, but let me just mention it now. Let's say you train in Nigeria. Let me use Nigeria for example, because I have friends in Nigeria who train in different parts of the world, some in the US, some in South Africa, some even in Nigeria. You don't have to stay in Nigeria. Why? Because you can go to Fly Dubai, you can go to Emirates. Those guys take foreigners, right? A lot of countries do take foreigners. They will you go through their conversion, get their own license, right? Which is not hard because they will do that for you because you're already an experienced pilot. So yes, you may have to start out in a country that you may feel like doesn't have all the bells and whistles that you want in terms of quality of life and things like that. But sure, you start out of there. But when you gain experience and you gain that jet time, or you're flying the 737, or you're flying the Airbus or whatever, right? When you gain those hours, you can then look for opportunities in other countries. Now, the restriction that you're having right now won't be a restriction anymore because those other countries need pilots. And I want you to know that that will continue for at least for a long time, in my opinion, because that has always been the trend. Asia, countries in Asia will still need pilots because they're expanding and they won't always have enough qualified, all right? That's the keyword, qualified. I'm not talking about international students that is trying to find cadet programs. No, I'm talking about qualified pilots. And for that reason, they still take on foreigners to come and fly for them. And if you get your experience in your country, you get your hours, then you are now a qualified, experienced pilot, which opens opportunities for you in different parts of the world. A lot of people don't think about this. And that's why I'm telling you that instead of you focusing on these foreign countries that may not take you because you're still a student or you don't have any, thing to really offer, when you have something to offer, they will take you. It's just how it is, all right? So let's move on to that. I think the training itself is easier since avionics got better, but the price of everything went up. Correct. Gabriel Quintana. So what you are referring to in terms of the prices going up is honestly just the cost of doing business. Or think about it, inflation, right? The iPhone that they used to sell $250, $300 when they first came out, right? They now sell them for $1,000. Same thing. The airplane that they used to sell for, let's say, $50,000 in 1970, right? They now sell that same airplane. They sell it for $150,000 now. That is just the way things has gone up. And correct, flight training it seemed like the cost of training has gone up, but if you look at it, relatively speaking, it's just what it was. Because back then, I would remember in 2000, because when I started training, let me use myself as an example. 2010, when I started, the quote they gave me for training from zero to commercial, right? From zero to commercial, not instructor rated, was $65,000. Now, zero to commercial is around, from most places, around 80 something, 90 something, right? So in my opinion, it's just inflation that has really caught up to things as well, right? So it's not like it's significantly more expensive because it wasn't any cheaper back then. $65,000 back then was a lot of money, right? Because I remember the exchange rate, was tough. Anyway, let's see. I feel like now there are less ways to be sponsored. Correct. There are less ways to be sponsored because I remember back then there were organizations that would take cadet programs, by the way, that would take international students, right? But now it's not like it's no longer the same. Okay, let me move to Discord a little bit. Let me just see if I can answer some questions here. So from Light, sorry about this, but I'm pursuing aviation through a modular route. I was wondering, in terms of the building, it's the heaviest and most expensive part of my journey, and was thinking into the UK. It was gonna charge me 13,300 for 90 hours and 1,200 roughly for landing fees at the other airport. Is that too much? I've looked at Europe, where the cost of the school plus living costs makes it almost as expensive. More so, what would be your advice on this? All right, so let me answer this question. So this is Light is asking a question about trying to get his hours And according to a school that he's been to, they're going to charge him 13,300 euros, or is it pounds? Pounds? I'm guessing it's pounds. But anyway, whatever the number is, for 90 hours and 1,200 roughly. Yeah, yeah, pounds. Right? Sounds good. Now, 90 hours, I just want to do it quick. So you said it's 13,300. Let's see, divided by 90, not plus. That's about 147, let's say 148 pounds per hour. The question I have for you, and I wish you could speak, honestly, because it just made it a lot easier. I think Charlie is not on. Okay. 148 pounds per hour roughly is what this number comes out to be. And what I was going to ask you is this, right? What kind of airplane? One, if you can answer that question, what kind of airplane are we talking about? And, do you have, that's including fuel? Yeah, PA-28. Okay, that's a whole, that's, honestly, that's a little expensive. All right. But I am looking at it, let me add some caveat to that. I'm looking at it from the US standards. Okay. So I could be wrong. Okay. So if that includes fuel, then maybe that's not too bad. Now that I think about it, if that includes fuel, that doesn't seem too off from what I would see even out here. Okay. But the other thing that you can do, and I think you've already done this, is to look at other schools and see, or the other, other places that may offer similar packages, right? I think that is something that you should look in. But the other thing also is, have you thought about sharing this with other people? Because I don't know how it works, particularly in the UK. Because, for example, in the US, you can have a partner and split the cost in half, right? So, your 13,300 is going to become a bit more affordable when you have two people doing it. So I don't know if it's something that you can do. Of course, you split the hours as well, right? But now, when I say you split the hours, you still get some of the hours. It's just that your PIC, your pilot in command time, I don't know if you understand, if I'm getting too deep into this. Your pilot in command time may be split, but your total time can still be part of it. You still get the total 90 hours, but your PIC time is what you would have to split, if that makes sense. So I don't know if you've looked into some of those out there. And your second question here is, would you recommend getting an instrument rating restricted to reduce the hours needed when it comes to doing your multi-engine instructor rating? So some of the rules, let me add some caveat. I'm in the US. Some of the rules differ, right? Some of the regulations and things that guide all your certifications are slightly different. So I'm not too familiar with that of UK. Okay, but one thing I'll say is that if you have a restriction, instrument rating restricted to reduce the hours when it comes to doing your multi-engine instrument rating, I'm not too familiar with how that works, honestly. I'll be honest about that. I'm not too familiar with with that restriction, what does that change for you, right? That's why I don't want to give you an advice on that. I wish I could help with that, honestly, but honestly, I don't know the details, so I don't want to guide you incorrectly. All right. Let's move on to Abdurrahman here. What's the best way to prepare for cadet programs? Is there? You're welcome, Light. And sorry I couldn't guide you on that second one. Okay, especially on that second one. I wish I could. So back to Abdurrahman here. Is there a certain website where I can practice aptitude tests for free? Oh yeah, there is there is a website that you can practice for free. And if you guys on Discord can help me out, some of you may know this. It's a French website, but I can't remember the name. Maybe on YouTube as well, if you guys know the name. There's a website out there that has free tests to use. Yep, somebody just shared one on here. But there's another one. Oh my gosh, I can't remember the name now. If I see it, I'll remember it, but I just can't remember the name. If I remember, I'll share it, but I can't remember. But there are a couple of them out there. Okay, and is it YouTube videos enough? No, YouTube videos aren't enough. Okay, YouTube videos can kind of help you, excuse me, but it's not enough. You need to really get on and use the programs so that you can have a better understanding of how things work with all those aptitude programs. Okay, aptitude tests rather. I'm planning to apply for Qatar Airways cadet program. Absolutely, yeah. So definitely get your hands on some of those programs and kind of play with them, use them regularly. And please, by the way, for those of you on YouTube and even on Discord as well, don't forget that Flight Simulator, right? Microsoft Flight Sim. If you have access to that, if you have a decent computer that can run the program, that helps with some of your kind of flying understanding, some of the concepts of flying. You will learn a lot from there. So don't disregard that. If you can get your hands on it, it goes a long way. I remember before I started flight training, I got on Microsoft Flight Simulator and kind of just started playing with it. I didn't understand everything, right? But that helped me to learn some of the things on the airplane a bit better, right? And faster, which saves you money, okay? Let's see, from Shenzo, I do kind of have the same situation. I do work as a logistics employee in the evening shift, so I can have the money for study, to study the theory. Also, I can provide the training for PPL practical in Netherlands, but I'm scared of taking long gap until I can or able to provide for the ATPL. So Shenzo, you have a good point. The struggle with funding your own training and working is that your training will be delayed. No doubt about that, because you're working and you're saving up money, funding the training, saving up money, funding the training. So yes, it might be delayed. But one thing I would say is if you can, right? If you can batch your training. So for example, what I mean by batching is set a target. You want to work for, let's say, 6 months. I don't know how much you earn, right? But if you can, if your work lets you do that, okay? I don't know what type of, you said logistics, but I don't really know the details of your work. But if your work lets you work, like if you can work back to back. Now, when I say back to back, I'm talking about like just focus on working for maybe 6-7 months, save up enough money, then do your, let's say you want to work on your PPL. Save enough to get the PPL and do the PPL. Then do some other work, right? Go back to work again and then come back. If that doesn't work with your work schedule, right? If you cannot do the type of batch training, then what you'd have to do is, of course, to kind of blend the two. So that means you're working, you're doing training, you're working, you're doing training. And that means that you won't have this bulk money saved, right? Which then means that you cannot push training as far as you should or as you want, because you probably run out of money so soon that you're constantly having to save up little, what you're earning, and you're putting it away. That is the challenge with that, honestly. But to be worried about ATPL, even when you haven't finished your PPL, in my opinion, you're looking way too ahead of yourself, Shenzo. My advice for you is focus on what is nearest to you. The closest thing that you can achieve right now is your PPL. So focus on that. Focus on saving money. If you can save and like do a batch approach where you work for 6 months and then focus on training for 2-3 months so that you can finish the training, right? If you can do that, that way you get your PPL done, then you come back and work and do another work for 6-7 months or so, if that is something you can do. If it's not something you can do, then why don't you just take it one step at a time? If you work a couple of days, whatever money you can put away, use it towards a flight lesson. But of course, find creative ways to save money. Again, using Microsoft Flight Simulator, things like that, to kind of help speed up your learning process and your learning curve. That way you don't spend as much time repeating stuff or doing stuff all over again. That is something you can do. But in my opinion, don't even think about ATPL. And again, just to share my story and to reiterate some of the things I've shared earlier, right? When I started my training, I couldn't even see beyond my PPL. one at a time, right? Like when I started. And then when I moved on to instrument training, I couldn't see beyond that because I didn't have, again, there wasn't money set aside. So I am sharing, and but the only difference between your situation and mine, okay, was that I I had the support of my family members and they were helping, right? So they will send some money now. I couldn't work. I was an international student, so I couldn't work. I would have worked, but I couldn't work. As otherwise you violate your visa restrictions and things like that, which then gets complicated. So anyway, I couldn't work. So the point I'm making to you now is you don't have to worry about ATPL just yet. Let's worry about the closest alligator to the boat, like they say in aviation. I think it's not just in aviation, they say it anyway. The closest alligator to the boat. Let's worry about that. Let's take care of the steps one at a time before we worry about ATPL. Because when you worry about ATPL, you would get discouraged and you will give up too soon. And I don't want that to happen, okay? Let's see, Gideon. So what do you think about doing training in different schools or countries? For instance, having to do my PPL and IR in Nigeria, then CPL somewhere else. Do you advise I do that or settle to do straight up in one school? Gideon, great approach. Nothing wrong with doing that. But it's good to understand what will, I think Charlie has responded. Let me see what it says. Let me set something up for Charlie real quick here. I think he has a better understanding of how some of these things work. So let me do something. Just a second. Charlie, let me assign him that so that he could. All right. Oh, I see what you mean. Just a second. Let's see that permissions. I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying to figure out something here. Say general. Hey, Charlie, just if you can hear me, I'm not sure the other admin rule you're talking about. Let's say channel permissions, like they're set up properly. Right click on their channel, add on stage rule, and set permission speak. Oh, let me see. Okay, I think I just did it. You want to try it now? Okay. Thanks. Let me know if you figure it out as well, just so that way the voice can work. I appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Back to the questions. Yeah, somebody shared another link here for Aeon tests as well. All right, back to your question, Gideon. So one thing I would say is, yes, you can go that route. You can actually do some of the PPL and instrument in Nigeria, and then you can do your CPL somewhere else. The only caveat that I will add to that is, so let's say you do your PPL and your instrument in Nigeria, and let's say you come to the US, because I've seen this as an instructor where people will come with foreign PPL and instrument rating. What ends up happening is that when they come to the US, not that it's not possible, it's possible, but there are some things that you need to keep in mind. And I hope that everybody's benefiting from this. So the question he asked, just to repeat for those of you on YouTube, one thing he asked was that if he does a CPL or PPL in a foreign country, in this case in Nigeria, can he come over to, let's say, the US as an example, and do this CPL? And the answer to that is yes, you can do that. However, when you move to a different country to continue training, they always want to make sure that you have all the requirements for the initial license you have. So in this case, if Gideon has PPL, in the US, there are some hours that you need to have met. So for example, your night requirement, your instrument time, cross-country time, landings, things of that nature, right? They want to make sure that you've met all those requirements, because every country, or for most part, in different regions, they usually have their unique requirements. So for example, in the United States, for flight training, any flight that is more than 50 nautical miles from your point of departure is qualifies for a cross country. Whereas if in your country that number is, let's say, 30 nautical miles, because the regions, and I don't want to get too into all of this, but think about it this way. In the United States, for example, there are so many airports around, so many airports, like there's small, big, large, everything all around. So when they deconstructed their regulations, it's based on the US standards, based on distances and stuff like that. But whereas in a country like, let's say, Nigeria, right? Let me use Nigeria for example. We have some airports, but not as many. And what that means is that in Nigeria, they may say, okay, well, in order to qualify for a cross-country flight, you only need to go 30 nautical miles. So when you now come over with your PPL license, based on those Nigerian standards, when you come over to United States, and then they'll tell you that, oh, well, yes, you have a PPL, but you haven't met the PPL standards for the United States because of this cross-country requirement. Like I said, in the US, it's 50 nautical miles. In other countries, maybe it's 30 nautical miles. For that reason, they may say you have to do those cross-country flights again in the US in order for you to actually meet all the requirements to get a PPL, FAA PPL issued to you. So that is something that happens, and I've seen that before. So keep that in mind if that is the route you want to take. Nothing wrong with it, but it's something to keep in mind when you begin to hear that at the time. Okay, so I've set up a stage. I'll start. Let me see. Let's see. I'm talking to Charlie here, trying to see if. Oh, I see. He's moving them over to the other one. Wait. Wait, can you hear me now? All right, can you hear me now? I should join Q and I think. Okay, I think I'm in now, right? Okay. Let's see. Am I in now? I can't tell. Let's see. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. Let's see. But then I'm still. Let me go back here. Welcome stages. Your mic will be muted unless you can leave and rejoin anytime. Okay. So I see what you're saying. I see how it is now. I see it's different from the other one. So just to make sure you all can still hear me, everybody can hear me right on Discord especially. Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Charlie. Okay. So just to finish up what I was saying about the training in the country, starting PPL in one country and then moving over to another country. So the point here is keep that in mind, because sometimes those restrictions can come out and kind of bite you, because yes, you might have saved money going that route, only for you to have to repeat some of those things in a new country. Because remember, your CPL is going to be based on, and for example, in the US, your CPL will be based on an FAA PPL. So even though you came with a foreign PPL, they want to make sure that you actually meet the standards to get issued, because you have to convert your license to get issued an FAA PPL first. That's what they would do based on your foreign license. Then you then add your CPL to that FAA PPL based on your foreign license. So it's all kind of tied together, but you would have to make sure, or they would have to make sure that you meet the FAA standards first. Okay. So let's see, I'm yet to round up my NYC program here in Nigeria, and I'm really looking to get my PPL here first before proceeding to some other school to continue my certification. There's nothing wrong with that, absolutely. But the country that you are trying to proceed to it will be important that you look into the country's rules, or maybe even call up the school that you're thinking of going to in that country to see how that would work. Every country is different. There are certain requirements that you'd have to meet. And of course, documentation is always a big deal. One of the issues I remember as an instructor back then, if somebody's trying to convert their license, one of the issues is always documentation. How can you prove to me that you did this cross country and you just didn't write it in your logbook, right? So documentation is very important. Sign-offs, endorsements, things like that. So make sure those things are intact, because that's what the school will need to rely on to say that genuinely these are genuine numbers. These are not just made up numbers, okay, or made up hours or whatever. But great question, Gideon. Great question. It's something you can do. It's possible. So yeah. All right. And somebody shared pilot assessments out here for assessments as well. Thanks, Varun, for sharing that. Let's see. Shenzo, you're welcome. I forgot to mention, I spoke to Fly Spain EPT, and they offered 80 euros per hour dry cost, excluding fuel fees, and I have to cover my own living expenses in Portugal. Is that better option than doing it in the UK? So, Light, so for these numbers that you have, 80 hours per euro dry cost, what I would say is, what about fuel and landing fees? What about looking into that? If you can get those numbers, that would help you to really estimate, what you need to do, all right, in terms of figuring out, should you do it in UK or should you do it in Spain? If you can get the fuel numbers, just an average, because the fuel numbers will always change, right? But your landing fees is usually stays the same. So if you can get those numbers plugged in to your estimate here, like I said, the previous number you shared came out to be about 148 per hour, right? If by the time you had cost of living, fuel, all of that into it, to your 80 euros, I'm pretty sure you're getting close to that number as well. So, but look into it. It's really something you have to do. Charlie, thanks so much. I appreciate it. Let's see. Somebody said here in Singapore cadet pilot program, do you know if it's applicable for international students? No, it's not. From what I have gathered, even though it's not stated, from what I've gathered, they do not take international students. So I would advise that, hey, you can apply. Okay, there's nothing wrong with applying. They won't stop you from applying. But if you don't hear back, know that that's most likely the reason. Okay, because from those who have applied in the past, it's been that way. They never respond to them. They never hear back. So I would say that. Thanks, Charlie. I appreciate it. All right. So let's see. Where do I see that? I actually want to see that screen again because I wasn't. Okay, so if anybody wants to speak on Discord, remember, just raise your hand. I think I'll be able to let you speak now. Charlie figured it out. Thanks for helping. Varun, for what program is that? What program? Okay, I see Light. Light, go ahead. I think I can. Let's see. Show request. I've invited you to speak. Light. Yes. Yeah, I can hear you. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Great question. So just for those on YouTube that may not hear, the question is, would I spend a lot of money or decent money on a flight simulator, so that, for practicing and getting better, just to make sure I'm understanding you correctly, Light, is that correct? Okay. So I would say that getting a flight simulator is is recommended, right? Now, how much money you spend on it is really up to you, if that makes sense. It's all based on what you can afford, things like that. But I wouldn't go all out on a flight simulator. I've seen some expensive flight simulators where people have multiple screens and all these gadgets, right? That's more like a hobby thing at that point. One thing you need to keep in mind is that if this is something that you do as a career, right, you're not an hobbyist, because an hobbyist would choose to spend so much money on something because they don't do it for a living. Make sense? When you do it for a living, right, it becomes different. And not because you are tired of flying, it's just because you would to justify the amount of money you spend on it, right? As an hobbyist, you can spend as much money because, hey, it's something you're doing as a hobby. But when you start to do it as a career, as when you work, you can't go 4 or 5 days working and then come back home and try to sit on a flight simulator. Does that make sense? So the thing here is, it's easy to think, oh, let me spend all this money on this flight simulator, on this gadget and all that. Yeah, it's nice when you're not doing it for a living, but when you start doing it for a living, you realize that maybe you don't need as much of those bells and whistles, especially because you actually fly the real thing. So there's no point spending so much money on it. So that's what my advice would be. At this stage, if I don't know what phase you are in, I know you're trying to get your ATPL done and all that, video hours and all. I would say, find something decent, but don't go too expensive. It's not, in my opinion, it's not worth it, because what will happen is that when you start to do this for a living, that flight simulator will start to gather dust, especially if you fly a lot. If you don't fly it regularly, then maybe, sure, you might be using it here and there. But personally, let me speak for myself. I don't I don't have a flight simulator anymore. And the reason is because one, I fly the real thing, but let's just say for proficiency's sake, let's say, you try to do some maneuvers that you don't do on a regular basis, single engine cuts, engine failures, engine fire, stuff like that, right? You are trained every 9 months in the US. You're trained, you sent back to the simulator, and I know they have that in the UK as well. Your proficiency checks that you have to do. You're sent back to the sim to do all these things every 6 months in some countries, every 9 months in the US, every 12 months in some regions. So the point here is, if you spend so much money on a flight simulator, I feel like you don't get that money out of it at that stage. But back to the point I want to make about flight simulator, they are good, but you don't have to go all out, on it. So it's all based on your pocket. But don't I would rather you spend that money to achieve your flight training, because the flight simulators can get expensive. Yeah, exactly. Only for you to finish training and then it just gathers dust, right? So I wouldn't want you to do that. Just find something decent, something that lets you stay proficient. A simple yoke and a rudder pedal would work. A simple computer, maybe 2 screens would work. You don't even need 2 screens, but let's just say you're trying to go all out, right? 2 screens would work just to give you a good feel and view of things you're doing. That's what I would advise. But you don't have to go all out at all. Awesome. You're welcome. All right. Unless you have any other questions, I can maybe, I don't know how to, oh yeah, you already dropped that. All right, cool. All right, let's see. Back to the question. Let's see. I hope you guys are benefiting from this. I know I'm kind of all over the place now. Let's see, YouTube. I feel like there are ways to be sponsored. I'm trying to get on YouTube as well, easier, but okay. I think I've already answered that. All right, somebody asks here, is Canada good for training as an international student? Canada. So great question. I don't know if you're still here, Safredi. And his question for those on Discord is that is Canada good for training as an international student? The challenge with Canada is weather. Now, I'm not saying people don't train there. People train there, but I mean, even some parts of the US, you deal with some weather. And by the way, talking about weather, I'm stuck somewhere. I'm sure you guys are wondering, I'm in a hotel room, right? As you guys probably can tell. And that's why I'm using my phone and using Discord, and, I'm kind of all over the place. I'm stuck, all right? I should be home right now. Like, as we speak, I should be home right now. But here I am talking to you guys. But I'm happy to do that. And to just give you what is going on, for those of you who may be familiar with some of the weather systems going through the US right now, there's this winter storm that is moving through, and we flew in here. When did I get here? I got here last night. No, not last night. Yes, yesterday morning. Got here yesterday morning. I'm in Pennsylvania. Got here in the morning around 7 a.m. because we left. Where was I? Jeez, I need to look at my schedule. I've forgotten what I did yesterday. So anyway, we came here yesterday morning, got to the hotel, and we kind of expected that this would happen, that it's likely going to cancel. The flight outbound is likely going to cancel because of the weather that is approaching Memphis, for those of you who are familiar with the US. So anyway, long story short, flight got canceled, and now I'm stuck. And I don't leave here until Monday night. But like I said, I should be home right now, and I was supposed to start another trip on Monday, but that's definitely not going to happen. So they have to figure out. So anyway, hence the reason why I had to schedule this event. And I'm like, you know what? How can I make best use of my time? I was like, let me spend it with my folks from YouTube and Discord and all that. Hence the reason why I'm doing this. So I hope that it's beneficial, and I'm happy that I'm getting it done as well. By the way, hi, Aguatra. I can't pronounce that. I'm sorry. Boeing or Airbus? Airbus all the way. I'm on the Airbus, but the Airbus I'm flying that I actually fly is quite dated, no doubt about it. But I like Airbus more than Boeing personally. Let's see. This is from Worldwide Worry. Hearing these stories are so inspiring. Literally, my fuel tank. I'm happy that it's inspiring, and I hope that you continue to feel inspired. Okay, and for everybody, where if you're on Discord, whether you're on YouTube, I hope that you continue to feel inspired by some of these stories, because that's the reason why I'm talking about them. That's the reason why we're doing this, and that's the reason why I keep doing this, right? I always remember the time when I started this journey. I reached out. Facebook was really new, 2009. It was really new, and I remember going on. I mean, maybe it was. I think Facebook launched in what year? Maybe 2006 or seven. I'm not sure exactly. But anyway, Facebook was still kind of new, and I remember reaching out to people. You know, you kind of search for random people on Facebook, and they look like they're pilots, and you send them messages. Nobody will respond. YouTube was still kind of new as well. There were no YouTube videos and people you could reach out. So the point here is, the flow of information now has made it a lot easier to get information, and the information that you get is vital, because yes, it's good to watch all these accidents investigation videos and people who share their own knowledge and experiences and all that. Those are good, but at the same time, how do you become, and that is the part that I try to fit into. I am not really inspired talking about the accidents that happen. Don't get me wrong, they always have good learning opportunities or learning avenues attached to them. That's fine. But how to become one or achieve your dream of being a pilot is that part that I try to fit into. And I hope that you continue to feel inspired, and I hope to continue to be a source of inspiration, whether through the stories that I share, through the information that I share, right? I hope that continues in that way. Let's see. How do you work? I'm guessing your question from Babankar is, how did I get my work authorization to work in the US airlines? Great question, because that is difficult to come by. There are ways in which you can do that. In my situation, I actually got sponsored by a family member, right? But for the majority of people that I know, it's always through family member, a wife, a husband, a mom, a dad, for the majority of people that I know. All right, that's just the straight talk. Now, the next set of people that I know that got sponsored and were able to get their work authorization and all that is through work. That's another way to do it. Okay, and that's why when I say work, I mean the flight school sponsored your what do you call it? Oh, what's the word for it? Jeez, I just kind of went off my head right now. So in order for you to change your status, that's what I'm trying to remember. Jeez. In order for you to change your status, the employer can file for you. And that's how I know some people were able to do it. Okay. Okay, so Varon, but I don't have land. Loan is not possible. Then what? The only option I would recommend is, of course, can you get educated or education? Get your bachelor's in technology. Again, I'm saying technology because that's what I'm familiar with. It doesn't have to be technology. It doesn't have to be IT. It doesn't have to be computer. There are so many fields out there that you can make so much money, but you have to look for where the money is and go for it so that you can fund the dream that you want. It's as if it's really, I mean, it sounds simple. I know it's not easy, okay, but it sounds simple. But the idea or the knowledge that I'm sharing is also what I have seen other people do, and including the things that I have done as well. Okay. Somebody's talking about Mayday here. Hey, listen, we'll get up track on go around. Forget to mention Steven. Thanks for the advice. I was able to get the Air League scholarship last year. Awesome. Wow. You didn't tell me that. I didn't even know that you got it last year. But congratulations. I'm happy that you got in, and you got some hours through that or some experience through that. All right. For those in the UK, he's talking about the Air League scholarship he applied to last year. And he was able to get something from that. Consistency, absolutely. Philippines, good for flight training. Um, see, I'm not familiar with Philippines. Okay, I'm not familiar with the environment or with the schools out there, but I know that they have some schools out there. I would say do your research and just compare. Compare. I don't know where you're from. If you're from that region, then absolutely look into the school, do cost comparison, safety records, and what your schedule will look like. So talk to somebody, talk to the admissions officer if you can. If you can find people who are in the school, talk to them, right? Remember what they say about feedback. Feedback from people that are currently doing it from that school will guide you better than what I can give to you, because I am not in that region, one, and I have not been in that region before, you know. For example, in India, if I work at an airport, the salary is around 20 to 30K, training cost around 6 million, I believe. Is that 6 million? I can't really count. This is the tiny one, two, three. Yeah, that's about 6 million rupees. How can I manage to fund my training? So you are looking at it from working at an airport. What are you working as, right? If you're just working, you know, kind of like a bare minimum type of job, yes, you might not be able to fund flight training from a bare minimum kind of job, right? And that's the truth. And that's why I said, you know, you do you want to look into careers that can pay you more. It might take a little bit longer, right? Because it takes time to get qualified in those fields, but that is the way you can fund it. I wish I had a better way, right? You know, especially I'm guessing you're from India, like you said. It can be a bit more challenging. That is true. I would be honest about that, because you don't have scholarship programs, you don't have cadet programs, and yeah, standard of the wages that you would earn. And just so that you know, I'm from Nigeria as well. I know there are some jobs you would do in Nigeria that there's no way you can save up money for flight training. But if you position yourself to go into some careers, some fields, whether it's in IT, you know, again, I'm using IT as an example. It doesn't have to be IT. Okay, that's something that I know someone has done. People do, right? Because at least you tend to make a little bit more money. All right. I think I already answered Max Willocks. I hope I said that correctly. What airline? I fly for FedEx. I'm on the A300. I will be applying for Volunteer. I hope I said that correctly. MPL cadet program. Do you know this airline? I don't know that airline. The school is BA training. The ICAO online assessment is in 2 weeks, but I'm stressed that I will not pass. Why are you stressed? Don't get me wrong, I understand the stress you may feel. I know that, you know, anytime anyone wants to take an assessment, sometimes you stress out, but just practice. If you know the type of assessments and the type of test you would have to take, just practice. Okay, practice using some of the resources that I share. That's really what you can do. Let me see, questions for chat. I'm on Discord here, just want to see what people are saying. Correct. Yeah, Abdurrahman replied Varon here. They would only respond to accepted candidates. That is what I've seen on their website as well. I guess the automated reply. Thank you for your interest in cadet program. We appreciate the consideration of this role. After careful consideration, we regret to inform you that your application has not been successful in this instance. But the reply got after 6 to 9 months, I guess. Yeah, so from what I've gotten, Varun, I'm not. This sounds like, I'm not sure if it's automated. It sounds like they actually responded to you. This is an automatically generated email. Please do not. Okay, so it says it's automatically generated, but why? Of course, they didn't tell you why it was unsuccessful. Gideon, you're welcome. Let's see. Somebody shared, Elusa, my main aim is to become an aerobatic pilot. How is the pathway for aerobatic instructors? Oh, so someone from Varon in QA. Okay, so Varon, if your goal is to be an aerobatic pilot, one thing I would say is where, all right, where is training to become a pilot? Because I think that will be important. In the US, you can, although I think I'll be the wrong person to tell you what to do and how to go about it, because I'm not one and I've never looked into one. But one thing I know is that, you know, you get certification, so you get the normal, you go through the normal PPL routes, and then from there you can transition to become an aerobatic pilot, flying aerobatic airplanes and things like that. I'm kind of curious why that's something that piques your interest. I would like to hear it. What inspired you to want to be an aerobatic pilot? That's kind of cool though. But anyway, the whole idea of becoming an aerobatic pilot, I think there's a different path to take when it comes to requirements, which I'm not familiar with because I haven't done that before, right? So I do not have a pathway to become one. I can't honestly. I don't know, but I know in the regulations, in the FAA regulations, there are rules and stuff that applies to aerobatic pilots that you can definitely look into. But honestly, I don't have much information as to how you can become one and tell you from A to Z about it. All right. Let's see. Can I ask you one thing? Do you know when the Cathay second officer recruitment will open? No, Daniel. Unfortunately, I don't. By the way, Wilcox, just all the best on your assessments. Just remember, one thing I'll say is practice as much as you can, and don't let your stress or the anxiety of the assessment be the reason why you don't get through. And that's something you need to watch out for. Okay, you have to stay composed and try to manage that so that way it doesn't become a problem, right? So you just do your part by practicing those. I'm sure you're already practicing something, using some prep out there. Continue to do that, and I wish you best of luck. All right, let's see. So Daniel, I don't know when their second officer recruitment will open. I have no idea. Pilot Josh, make sure everybody that you listen to Steven's wonderful advice. I wouldn't be in flight school right now without him. Thanks for saying that. I'm glad that you are in flight school, and I hope that you're doing well. Okay, I hope you're doing well. I hope your training is progressing well. Remember, so it's something I would like to say. A lot of times, I feel like I talk about aspiring pilots a lot, and I forget to include those that are actually in training, those that are, maybe going through the thick of it. Okay, but I want you to know that you are not forgotten. Okay, if you're in training, if you're about to start training, I want you to know that you're not forgotten. I want you to know that, my content right now just seems like it's mostly, or at least what I talk about is mostly geared to how people can get in, right? But I know eventually time will come, my content will shift to more like people that are in, if that makes sense, or maybe a mix of both. And sometimes I touch on, some of the challenges that people face in flight training and things like that, so that they can safely be out and be qualified. Because just so you guys know, and girls know, about 80%, according to the statistics out there, 80% of people who start flight training don't finish training. Okay, and I hope that none of you will be part of that. My hope is that when you start, you're able to finish. Okay, and the reasons, it ranges from, money is always part of it, but like I always say, I think money is always just an excuse, because in as much as it is true, and don't get me wrong, it is true because you need money to train, right? One thing that I've seen, and based on what I've shared all through today, is that yes, there will be money challenges, but as long as you stay motivated, all right, and motivation is something that is not always there, right? Sometimes you feel motivated about something for a period of time and then you kind of just let go, right? Don't get me wrong, the reality sets in for some people, right? Maybe it's just a situation that they find themselves, family situations, life situations, health situations, medical situations. All those things still happen, and it happens to anybody, even people who are in the career already, right? Those things happen. I'm not going to minimize that. But one thing I just want to say is, for those for those who are still trying to become pilots, or those who are about to start or thinking of starting, the biggest reason why a lot of people don't get through is always that drop in interest, drop in motivation. And that is why, just to kind of highlight this, that is why most of these cadet programs, they are very, 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 and I can't emphasize it enough, very big on motivation. It may sound like, oh, it's just motivation. Isn't it just to demonstrate that you're motivated? Unfortunately, no, it's not, because training itself is difficult. But outside of that, it's a whole long career, right? How do you stay motivated? Again, just like I said, I should be home right now, right? I can complain all day and tell you how mad I am, and now I'm stuck, and I'm stuck for a couple of days. And don't get me wrong, COVID is another example that happened to a lot of people. A lot of pilots, especially for FedEx, they were stuck in different countries, shutdowns, and don't get me wrong, not just for pilots, not just for FedEx, different pilots, different airlines, where you're flying to a destination and they tell you that, oh, the destination has shut down because of some COVID thing, right? And the airplane has to divert and be stuck in another country. Things like that can be very demotivating, can mess with your mental state. But those are the things that you have to guard against. You have to stay motivated. You have to stay focused. And same processes that you guys are going through right now, those of you who are preparing for cadet programs, there will be times you get tired of practicing. There will be times you get tired of going through that routine and you're like, gosh, I'm tired of this already. But then you have to remind yourself, I need to stay grounded. I need to stay focused. I need to keep going because it will pay off down the line. One thing I'll say is, for all these people that I've mentioned on here, whether they got through cadet program or they had to sell a land to get through training or they had to save money from university, it's part of their story that they would always say and share. But the life they are living now, they won't be living that life right now if they gave up, right? They won't be where they are today. So that's something to keep in mind anyway. All right, what flights? Let's see. Make sure. Let's see. This is from JD Doll. Oh, I don't know how to say that. JD Lol. Okay. What flight school are you at, and when? Okay, that's for somebody else. All right, Pilot Josh says I'm in UK, Skyborne. Awesome, congrats, all the best. Example, India. Okay, I think I already sent that. After that, let's see. This is from Tob or T0B1211. Soon I'll have an ab initio selection. Do you think it's okay when it comes to weaknesses to mention some kind of not very well structured communication when I have solutions for it? So one thing I'll say is when it comes to a weakness question, right, it's okay to highlight something, whether it's communication or mention, I don't know, people have different weaknesses they mention, right? But one thing that you want to always end with is how you've improved and give good examples. So not to get into a coaching state right now or set the stage for that. This is just to answer your question, Tob or TB112 or 11211. Any weakness question you share, make sure you are able to back it up on how you have improved and give good real life examples of how you have applied the lesson you learned. So if I tell you that my communication wasn't great, and by the way, let me use this as an example for you. When I started YouTube back in 2019, not on this Aviation channel, but in 2019, I wasn't like this. I wasn't myself. My hands would be sweating. I would be, confused on what to say and how to say it. And don't get me wrong, there's still times when I stumble, right? But the point here is I've learned to measure myself based on how I performed the previous time, right? And I've slowly improved on those skills over the years. And based on that, I'm now able to do what I do now. I'm sharing the real life examples of the things I've learned over the years that has helped me to be where I am today, where I can talk to you guys and interact with you guys without having notes and scripts and all this stuff. It takes the practice of doing. But to answer your question, when it comes to an interview, you want to be able to list the weakness, state how it affected you, state the improvement you've made, and how you've applied it. And if you want to then get the extra cherry point, how you will use it in aviation. Okay, I hope that makes sense. All right, let's see. Next one is from Palaminho. That sounds like a Brazilian name. Let's see. I quit my university because I could not focus, and I've searched ways to start my ATPL. I quit, started an apprenticeship, and now I became the head of department. I also started my modular ATPL. How do I explain this journey to my future airline? That's actually a very inspiring story, you know. Now, maybe the way you said it is what is can make it too blunt, all right, especially if you're trying to tell the story at an airline. For example, if you're asked why you stopped why you stopped your university degree or the pursuit of your degree, one thing you can say is that, well, you started your degree program and you realized that your passion. So you can see, I didn't say, oh, I quit. All right. You can see you realized that you had more passion for aviation and you decided to pursue that because at this young age that you are and the opportunities around you, you realize that it's going to be beneficial to you, to your family, to your future to pursue aviation, knowing that that's a dream that you really would want to pursue. And based on that decision you've made, you were able to achieve X, Y, and Z. I was able to become, what did you say you become again? You became a head of department. List all the achievements you were able to achieve, okay? Because remember, the airline doesn't really care that you left a university to pursue aviation. They don't care about that because you don't need a university degree. But what they care about, all right, very important, what they care about is that you are not somebody that quits. You are not someone who quits. Because if you are trying to get with an airline, there will be difficult times with the airline, right? There will be situations that come up in life, especially for those of you who are thinking of career programs, right? People would want to quit for various reasons when difficulties set in. So the airline wants to make sure that you're not somebody who will quit. You have a very strong fortitude to go through the difficult stages of life. And if you can share the things you're able to achieve, despite the fact that you left this certain path to pursue this other path, and you now, achieved all your successes and all that, that's a great story. So when it comes to answering that question, it starts with framing. I wouldn't say I quit, right? I would rather say that I transitioned to aviation because your passion lies more in that, and then you kind of list all the things that you're able to achieve. I hope that makes sense. All right, let's see. What about Emirates cadet program? This is from Banker on YouTube. With Emirates, honestly, they all take the Emirates, right? If you're an international student, it's not open to those. All right, let me move to Discord real quick. All right, for guys that got accepted in the cadet programs, what do you think is the best way to practice effectively for aptitude tests, accommodative assessment, blah, blah, blah? Okay, so Abdul Karim, to practice for those assessments and aptitude tests, I would say, let me address aptitude tests, accommodative assessments. For those, I would say that, Pilot Assessments website is one. You can use my discount code, Stephen Aviate, but use any website that you feel comfortable using. Honestly, it doesn't matter. But the important thing for group assessments, all right, one thing, and for those of you on YouTube as well that may be listening to this, group assessments, the best way to practice is to put yourself in a group setting. And I know it kind of sounds like, well, how do I put myself in a group setting? If you work, right, try to practice some of the skills that they look for. So what are they looking for in any group assessment? What do they assess? Oh, they'll assess your communication, right? They assess your leadership. They assess how you manage your time. They assess how you divide work and task management. They assess your situational awareness, right? So if you have all these competencies that I've just mentioned, a few of them, when you are in a group environment, the best place to learn and apply them is in that group environment, which means try to take leadership on some of the tasks that you have to do. Try to assign roles. Now, the reason why you're doing that, and just so you know, the reason why you're doing that is not because of any thing other than getting practice, okay? Real world practice. Because when you then go into that interview or that assessment with that airline, trying to do your group assessment, you already have experience. You've already done it before. The reason why a lot of people kind of flunk the group assessment stage is either they have an overbearing attitude or they are too quiet or shy or intimidated, right? Because you have all these other people who are speaking. And more importantly, I think another thing that I've seen that has been an issue for some is lack of knowledge of the subtopic at hand, especially if it's in aviation. a good example. 2 years ago, I think one of the assessments was on what does a pilot have to do in preparation for departure, right? Sorry, I have something in my mouth. And if you don't have a knowledge of what pilots do, right, and you guys have to kind of assemble all these tiles and do it together as a group, so it's a group activity. So if you don't know what a pilot does and you have all these other pairs in your group who are very familiar with what a pilot does, guess what? You end up taking a back seat. And when you take a back seat in a group exercise, that's not a good thing, right? So, you kind of have to just be as knowledgeable as you can, because you just never know what kind of exercise. And to be honest with you, it can be simple as, oh, how do you plan a party, right? It might not be in aviation at all. It might be something in lines of, as a group, plan a party for someone, right? And then how do you do it? And they measure how you work together as a group to plan that event. But the point here is, those skill competencies I've just listed, some of them you can find in the pilot assessment, not pilot assessment, what do you call it? Pilot competencies guide that I have. Again, it's not under these videos, but if you check my other videos on YouTube, you see the link there. I kind of gave what they call observable behaviors, and it's not by me, just so you know. Those observable behaviors are literally from the IATA, all right? The IATA instructor guide. And that's what these people are looking for. They want to observe how you talk, how you interact with other people, how you maintain situational awareness. Are you aware of the time? Are you able to communicate the time? Just things like that, right? So anyway, I don't want to get into all of that with this. All right, let's see. Hi. I see a lot of highs. Hi to all of you guys. I see Big Scrunger. I see Captain Max 226. Hi, thanks for joining. Chibazan, to become an RAF pilot, you need to do a DA test, which includes stuff like numerical, special reasoning, as well as work rate. Do you know any free resources that could help with this? A free resource? No, I don't. Now, one thing I would say about free resource, everybody talking about, because this is like the second person asking about free resources. Be careful about, in as much as they are good, be careful also that the resource is updated or up to date. And that's why sometimes, I would rather pay $20 or 20 euros. I don't know how much these things charge now. I like pilot assessment, I think it's like the cheapest one is like 20 something or 30 pounds or 30 euros. I think I would rather pay something like that, knowing that I'm getting up-to-date information, recent information, and access to everything, compared to a free resource that may not be up to date. Okay, so that's something to just keep in mind. Where's this streaming? I don't understand that question. Very insightful. Very happy that it was insightful. I'm happy that you guys learned some things from here. I'm hoping that you're taking something away from here. I've been on for almost 2 hours now. Jeez, I actually didn't know that it's almost 2 hours. Right? Yeah, it's almost 2 hours. 123 actually, more than 2 hours. All right, let's see. What else am I missing? My main aim is to become an aerobatic pilot. I think I already answered that question. Yes, I was responding to, but same generic rejection email. Somebody responded. Yeah, so for those of you who are talking about what do you call that, the Singapore program, like I said, they don't take international students. So I would say that you kind of keep that in mind, from what I've gathered anyway. Hey Stephen, this is from YouTube from Matthew. Hey, I hope you're doing well. Thank you for all the advice and support you provide. Keep it up. Thanks, Matthew. Hope you're doing well. It's been a while, and I remember that I'm hoping for good news for you in the near future. Hopefully, I don't know what you're working on right now, but I'm hoping for good news for you. All right. Zo6 Logan. Hey, hope you're doing well. Thanks for joining. Beg for still and stay self-motivated. I appreciate that. And that is referring to, like, if you want to become a pilot, what you need to do. And he's saying you borrow still. I don't know about the still, but borrow, sure. Stay self-motivated. I kind of agree. Beg, oh, sure, I agree. The still, I'm not really sure of that. Scholarships guide. Good evening, sir. I want to get an aviation scholarship, but I don't know where to start. Most of the ones I find don't accept Nigerians. Please advise. Yes, unfortunately, that is the problem that I see as well. And most of these programs out here will only take people from their regions, and it's a sad situation. And there was something I was thinking about someday, right? I don't know if this will happen, all right? But I feel like I feel like in the near future, right? And I haven't. I would. I don't know. I don't want to say it just yet because I may jinx it, so I'm not gonna say it. But let me see. Once I've finished my ATPLs and start flying for my airline, what do you think are the biggest challenges from training, and how can we prepare for this to be an effective second officer? Awesome, Matthew. Great question. So biggest biggest challenges from training really comes down to um, you would have a very short period of time to do a lot of things. So what I mean by that is when they send you through training, even from flight school, right? Especially on funded programs, they are on a clock. They want to get you done. They want to move you through the training phase. So that means you have to be studying on a regular basis. But particularly to your question, with an airline, your training might only be a few months to get qualified, which means they want to get you through all these maneuvers, all these procedures, the airline books as well, like the airline, what they call in the US, we call it FOM, Flight Operations Manual, Pilot Operating Handbooks, things like that, right? You have all these materials to go through. So the problem that people would experience is, of course, time management and the ability to assimilate all this information within a very short period of time. So if you don't manage your time very well, it's very easy to fall behind, and you have a lot of things to cover within within a very short time frame. So the point here is the way you can get around that I would say is, honestly, you have to understand that you have to have that mindset that, hey, it's going to be a lot of work, it's going to be busy, but as long as I stay in the books or in the material or in the procedure, you will get through it. Remember, once an airline takes you on, the airline doesn't really want you to fail. The airline actually wants you to succeed, no matter the airline, because they are spending money on you, right, to go through training. So they want you to succeed. So the only thing that you have to do is to show that you're motivated, you're ready. And what do I mean by ready? That means you show up to each module that you have to complete. You show up prepared. That means you're doing all your studies the night before. You're doing all the necessary things that you have to do to show that you've learned, or at least you've read to an extent, the things that you should learn, so that when you show up to that exercise or that simulator exercise or ground exercise, you have some things to show that you've learned. All right. Good advice on the group bit. I asked to get involved on projects at work to help practice group working, both in leadership and not. It's very helpful preparation and learning. Absolutely, Matthew. Honestly, that is something that I'm preaching on here. The more hands-on experience you can gather before all these cadet programs, especially if you're trying to apply to cadet programs and things like that, the more hands-on experience you acquire, the more tools you have when you show up to that group exercise or you show up to that interview. The reason why a lot of people struggle at interviews is, generally speaking, limited experience, or limited what do you call it, active experience, or doing something, right? You actively doing that thing, saying that you're doing, right? If they ask you, tell me about a time when you had to juggle multiple tasks and you didn't succeed. That's a difficult question, right? Because they're not asking for the one that you succeeded on, they're asking for the one that you didn't succeed on. And a lot of people are prone to want to talk about the one of success over the ones that they failed. So they ask you about that kind of question, it can trip you off. And if you haven't had a lot of active experience doing such things, then it can be hard to answer that question. But if you've actively done things from work, with your friends, actively doing such things that you couldn't achieve success, then you have something to fall back on. And then you can just use the STAR method, right? Remember the situation, the task, the action you took, and the results you achieved, and tied to aviation, right? As long as these are real life experiences, you are likely to confidently talk about it and achieve something out of it. All right. All right, guys. I think I'm gonna wrap this up. I've been on here for 129 minutes. Honestly, I didn't even know that the time has flown by so quickly. So it's been great. Honestly, I've really enjoyed reading your comments, getting your feedback. I'm hoping that this will continue in the future. By the way, if you are not part of the Discord group, please feel free to be part of that as well. I will put on events like this occasionally to, like I said, I'm stuck somewhere and I'm like, you know what, I have this time. I can do this. I know a lot of people will benefit from it, and here we how we're doing it. So being able to stay flexible and adaptable, all those competencies we talk about, right? That's how we're making it work here. And I hope to continue to do this even, for the foreseeable future, as long as I'm able. So I'm going to try to find some food to eat because I haven't eaten. It's currently, let's see, 3:05 my time right now. So, Flying Matt, thank you. I appreciate you joining. Please don't forget to drop a like. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed yet. I would love to do this again in the near future. And as you can see, I don't know if it's actually obvious that I'm on my phone. For those of you on YouTube anyway. But thanks, Charlie. By the way, for those of you on Discord, thanks to Charlie for stepping in. William is working right now, so I had to put Charlie on, and it resolved something that I was struggling with. So thank you so much for your time, Charlie. I appreciate it. I'm going to continue to read some of these questions on Discord, but I think my phone needs to charge. I'm actually down to about 20% right now on YouTube, for those of you on YouTube, so I'm gonna have to shut this off. But it's been great. Honestly, I'm so appreciative of all of you who have shared your inputs, your experience, all of that. All right, I really do, and I do not take any of this for granted. Okay, so thank you all, and I'll see you in a future video. Please drop a like and stay safe out there. It's Saturday, right, for me anyway. So have a great weekend and have a good night wherever you are. Take care.